Well, I just found this video randomly. Is Fedora the best Linux distribution ever by Mitchell Horn? Kind of like that name. And he's a new content creator, almost 1,000 subscribers. He actually do a monthly recap on his change over to Linux. I've not watched any of the video. I just researched his channel before I did this because I haven't heard about him. So I'm actually really interested in to see, you know, what his take is on this and stuff like that. And I think he's like one of those people you should probably subscribe to. So let's get into it. And now my autism is going in. Now I want to see what he has here in the background here. Looks like he's a gamer, maybe an artist, running sunglasses. Yeah, let's get into it here.
Wow. To be honest, when I initially started to do some research about the most popular Linux distributions, besides Debian, my go-to distribution.
Yeah, the most popular Linux distribution, let's just get out of the way. I will be nice to this guy here because I think he's new to this whole thing. Ubuntu is the most popular and most used Linux distribution with the most user base. It is based on Debian, so you could debate if Debian is under that umbrella. But again, it is Ubuntu. It's by far Ubuntu.
Since I already know it. Fedora was one of those distributions that turned me off right away. But why? I don't know really. One of the reasons I
know it's popular, but I fucking hate those, you know, when you zoom in and out in those, you know, when you're talking and every time you change your sentence, it's zooming in and it's zooming out. But I just find it really distracting. It's like when I'm talking to you, I'm doing this every time I'm talking to you. You know, hey, you're like Captain Kirk all over the place. Just don't do that, please. It could just be me being an old fart, but I find it highly distracting.
Remember that was off-putting to me was that it wasn't based on Debian. So I always thought if I were to start with Linux as my daily driver, then I should already choose a distribution that's related to something that I already know. It's the little things that count. I've already been quite familiar with Debian's package manager, the huge repositories with deb packages, the stability, and of course, the really awesome and really big community. Because of the well-known stability of Debian, many different derivatives emerged from it. Ubuntu, Debian, Pop! OS, Elementary OS, and Linux Mint are just some of the many popular Debian.
Oh yeah, he put an asterisk there, Ubuntu, not Debian. They do have a Debian version, and I will also say this, that just because you are based on it don't necessarily mean that you are that distribution. So in Ubuntu's case, and to some extent Pop! OS and Elementary OS's case, they are more like Ubuntu than Debian, and Debian or Ubuntu is more like a cousin to Debian. Because there are things that are compatible with Ubuntu that don't work under Debian. That's kind of how I define how close you are to the mothership, you know. Ubuntu is kind of like this second cousin or third cousin, so they have a lot of the same DNA, but Ubuntu also have a lot of its own DNA. And then Pop! OS and Elementary OS and Mint, they are more alike Ubuntu than they are Debian. But we all get the idea here. They're all using the package, the deb file, the app package format. They're using a lot of the same under the hood systems. They're not using the same kernel. Well, 4 out of these 5 are using the Ubuntu kernel. Mint, Elementary OS, and Pop! OS is not. So 3 out of these 5 are using the Ubuntu kernel. So are they closer to Debian or Ubuntu? Pop! OS is using their own kernel. I think Debian is using either their own or Debian.
Debian-based distributions and their popularity provides many forums and guides that can help you if you have any questions. But Fedora does not fall far behind. I literally had no idea how big the Fedora community is.
It sounds like fucking a girl that just got a guy home. Oh my god, it's a fucking big penis, man. Well, Fedora, I think the last time when Ubuntu came out with their official install base in 2015, they said they had over 40 million installs. They probably have way more nowadays. And back then, Fedora had 18,000, and that was this number's 2 most used distribution. I honestly think that Fedora and Arch are probably the 2, you know, they are fighting for second place of the most used distribution. But I will not be surprised if Ubuntu have like close to 100 million installs. Or at least close to 60 thereabouts. I would actually guess around 100. Because Ubuntu is fucking everywhere.
And the fact that it's based off Red Hat, which is now known as Red Hat Enterprise...
It's the other way around, my friend. It's sponsored by Red Hat, and Red Hat is based on technologies being tested under Fedora. So think about Fedora as the testing repositories for Red Hat, and then they test stuff in there. They test technologies, and some of that may morph itself into the Red Hat Enterprise ecosystem. Not all of it, but some will.
A distribution built towards businesses means that it is really stable as well. Fedora, in contrast to many other distributions like Debian, sets itself apart by having so-called rolling releases. Would that?
No. Again, I think he's new to this, so I will be a lot more kind. No. They don't have a rolling release. If you have a rolling release, you don't jump repositories. Fedora jump repositories. Arch, which is a rolling release. Tumbleweed, that is a rolling release. You never change repository. You are running off the same repository forever and ever 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 and ever. Static releases, jump releases, call them what the fuck you will, they jump repositories. They can have aggressive updating schemes as semi-rolling releases, like Fedora have. The kernel get updated faster, a lot of libraries get updated faster, desktop environments get updated faster, but there are some core components of the operating system that don't get updated until you get to version 36, 37, then they will get updated. Not many, but a few, where if you go to Debian, almost everything stands still until a new release. If you go over to Ubuntu, most of things stand still for 6 months until the new release, but some things get a rolling release update. If you go to Elementary OS, the desktop is updated in a rolling release fashion, but everything else is in a static release. So that's why Fedora is confusing a lot of people. And if you look at Fedora's official description, it's semi-rolling for those kind of reasons. But again, if you're new to Linux, again, this is one of the problems with being new to Linux. There's all these nuances here that you don't get yet. And then when you start to get into them, it's a fucking mess. Because it's one more rolling than the other. It's one more static than the other. It's really, really hard to say. And that's why I say, if you look at it like this, every real rolling release don't change repositories. Any static release change repositories, and that's the easiest way to look at it, or the most simple way. And then there's of course caveats. Like I said, Elementary OS takes the desktop environment from another repository, makes that rolling. But if you look at the core operating system, you know, the kernel, the core libraries and stuff like that, is that static or rolling? You know, do we jump repositories every time there's a release update? It's the most simple way, and with a lot of caveats, but it's the most simple way of looking at it.
That means is that instead of freezing the software packages, whereas only bug fixes get applied for the next big release, Fedora keeps updating the software up until the release.
Again, not all, like I said previously, a lot of caveats. And what about Ubuntu? They also a little bit in the middle.
The biggest advantage to this is that the programs are far more newer than on other distributions, but you are sacrificing a bit of stability for it. Arch does this, by the way. Now, Fedora does not include the newest software right from the start, but has a slight delay of approximately 10 weeks. This is nowhere near Debian testing.
He did say Arch have a 10-week grace period. I think he means Manjaro.
For example, which has a freeze cycle of up to half a year. And the software included in this release was already heavily tested. So not even everything is up to date when the freeze happens. So Fedora is much better when it comes to updates. Yeah, I switched to Fedora, but why did I?
Yellow
when I like
Club, by the
Debian
way.
so much? Well, to be honest, the reasons are just rolling releases and also the installation process.
Oh my god, most people hate the fucking Fedora installation process. But again, I will 100% give him a pass on the rolling release thing, because a lot of people that are not that versed in how Linux works under the hood see it as a rolling release, because they just, oh, how often do I get updates? That's what they look at. There's then security updates, bug fixes, and like I said, Fedora do freezes some packages. Again, we can nerd out about this, but I have never heard someone praising the Fedora install. It's like someone finding a turd on a beautiful girl and be like, fuck the beautiful girl, I like this turd instead.
I installed Fedora on my testing laptop last week, and to be honest, it was the easiest installation experience I've ever had.
I do like it. I do like it myself.
Another thing that Fedora offers in contrast to Arch, for example, is the option for secure boot. I know secure boot is hated by the Linux community, but if you have...
Nope, using Linux for 24 plus years and I don't mind secure boot. I don't mind anything that can potentially make your system more secure. If that means that you're locking stuff out, you're locking stuff in, you're excluding other things, make the user decide. But anything that makes your system more secure, I'm all for, but it should be an option.
Have Windows games that are not yet compatible with Linux and they have an anti-cheat, then you might need to have it enabled. Both Faceit and Valorant need secure boot to be enabled on Windows 11. And I just don't want to go into the UEFI every time I boot into Windows. So if you don't play competitive games at all, then this issue does not bother you at all. But for me personally, it's essential. Another thing that bothered me for a while now were the updates on Debian. Now, I'm not on Debian stable. I am on Debian testing, which means I'm currently testing the next big release of Debian, Debian 12.
That's the only way to run Debian if you're a real hardcore user. I only run Debian testing. I only ran Debian stable when I was testing out servers and stuff like that, Samba servers, file servers and whatnot. And then I just end up on my desktop or my VMs just running testing. Because again, you get newer software. It's in my instances, I haven't had any stability issues with it. I always say this, that Debian testing is a better Arch than Arch. And a lot of Arch people will fucking hate me for that, but yeah.
Bookworm. Debian testing already has Gnome 42, but it's not that simple because it's getting pieced together over time. For example, I already have GTK4 support on some apps, and Gnome Tweaks even shows me legacy options. The main settings, however, are not yet updated. The same applies for the desktop session, whereas the default is now Wayland instead of X11.
You can change that. You can actually install and uninstall it. It's not that big of a problem.
NVIDIA. But right now, it's not. Fedora is way quicker on updating desktop environments, and the fact that it's more official than Debian testing just makes it so much better.
That could also, again here, like you said, stability, security issues. Yeah, here's the thing, he's a little bit like the Linux experiment person. He likes new shiny things. So if you're one of those things that just like every time there's a new version, whatever of something, I need it now. No. I needed it yesterday before everyone else. If you are in that mindset that you can't wait till something is thoroughly tested, it's 100 or not 100%, but it's massively more stable. All the bugs are ironed out, or most of the bugs are ironed out, and the security problems are ironed out. If you can't wait for that, you're willing to sacrifice that, sometimes more than others, yeah, you go for rolling release. But if you just want shit to work, you want it to be highly stable, highly secure, don't want to deal with fucking random crashes and bugs and stuff like that, well, Leap, OpenSUSE Leap, Debian stable, Ubuntu LTS could probably work better for you. It's again a little bit... Again, I guess he's new to... I think he's from Germany or something like that, because this site is in German.
Also, I really like the...
A beer friend.
Gnome default experience, which was also one reason why I choose Debian over other distributions like PopOS. Back when I installed Manjaro, the first thing I...
Yeah, Manjaro is not Arch. I'm sorry to say it, but Manjaro is not Arch. It's based on Arch, but it's not Arch, and it's a misconception a lot of people are using. Even Manjaro themselves say they are not Arch. Again, I will give people a pass for this when they are new to Linux, but it's not Arch.
I did was to clear out everything I didn't like, which frankly were a lot of extensions and programs. Fedora 36 comes with GNOME 42 right out of the box, without any extensions pre-installed, except their watermark of course. That is really cool, because you already have GNOME, which is a very solid desktop environment.
Yeah, if that's what you like. Again, preference people. Some like blondes, some like brunettes.
As of itself, but also a base canvas where you can build upon. I also enjoy the way how you install software on Fedora. Even though I've mostly used Debian's apt to install software previously, Fedora's DNF is very similar and simple to use. Pacman, for example, was one of the things that really bothered me about Arch, because you have to add some weird parameters.
Yeah, I get why they're doing it. They're using sync instead of install, and it kind of makes sense because you're syncing your on, your off, or your computer with an online repository, but it's not intuitive. So a lot of distributions, this is I'm going on an arts rant right now. Like someone commented in my comment section, I'm going to use this a lot more. Stupid people admire complexity. Intelligent people admire simplicity. I think it's something to that nature. I noticed that a lot of distributions, they love when things look smart, looks complicated, instead of just making it intuitive and easy. And that's kind of why I, to some extent, don't really like Arch that much. Like, I like running it, but I don't like, administrating it. Because they are overcomplicating a lot of fucking things that should not be overcomplicated. And there is a beauty in making things intuitive. I honestly think that.
I mean, it's nothing crazy, but why? I don't want to talk anyone down. If you enjoy it,
do it. Please talk people down. It's so funny.
Then that's great for you.
Oh, no, don't say that. Please, if you're new to the Linux community, don't do that. Don't tell people to use whatever they want. Please tell them what they want, because if you don't have a strong opinion about anything and everything on Linux, you are now deemed as a fence sitter, a Windows fanboy, a Mac fanboy, a casual, a normie, an unintelligent Linux user. You should basically not be here. Please don't let people have their own independent thoughts and mindset within Linux. This is a dictatorship where everyone is their own dictator and they are the right one and everyone else is the wrong one. Please don't let people have an independent, intelligent thought. It's not good for you. You will not last long in here.
It's just my personal opinion and I just don't like it. Don't let anyone talk you down. So, let's...
But my mom do it all the time.
Wrap it up. My Fedora experience was basically flawless. I didn't really have to do anything at all to get it back to the same experience I had my Debian installation on. Which is kind of insane. The installation...
Insane in the brain. Hey. I'm happy, man. I'm fucking happy that it works like that.
The installation process was so fast and simple. It actually makes me wonder why Fedora isn't the default when it comes to recommending Linux distributions to newcomers.
A shameless plug here. I have a video called Why Everyone Should Recommend Ubuntu. It's not the most supported in the community, meaning that most guides that are being made for Linux is Ubuntu. Most videos that are being made about Linux is Ubuntu. Most talking, educational content, help content is Ubuntu. And it just makes it easier for people to find help. If they Google, like I said, how to set up Wi-Fi, you will probably get, like in the first page, you will get most Ubuntu guides. And you can't use those commands if you're going into the command line on Fedora. It's a sad reality, but that's how it is. I do like Fedora better than Ubuntu, to be honest. But I will never recommend Fedora for any new Linux user. I will still recommend Ubuntu, because then they have a higher success chance of getting help online, because there are just more guides for Ubuntu.
Many Linux YouTubers out there say that Fedora is the new Ubuntu by providing a solid, easy-to-use experience.
No, it's not. There can never be a new this. I've even talked about this in a couple of times. Fedora is not the new Ubuntu. Fedora is probably... What they mean is that Fedora is closer to what they like in Linux. It's just that Fedora is where Ubuntu was back in the day. You know, it's in this kind of perfect blend, in my opinion, between talking to the nerd geek crowd and talking to the casual user. where Ubuntu is kind of a little bit more over in the casual user point. And maybe it's too much for a lot of people. So that's why they are like, well, Fedora is kind of what we remembered Ubuntu was like 10 years ago. Like it was this silver road. Yeah, they are doing it because they like Fedora. It's Fedora fanboy videos. You can even regard this as a Fedora fanboy video.
Experience while not being too outdated. And I 100% agree with that.
Again, version numbers. This is a really, really great pause. Version numbers don't mean anything. It depends on what you want. Stability, like I said, stability, security, and stuff like that. And here's the thing. When you get an update, a lot of the time is stuff you don't fucking notice. It's like, oh, we moved the icon 1 millimeter to the left. Or, oh yeah, we changed some wording in our fucking help section. Or we changed a pixel that was out of line. Or we changed, like a font setting and stuff like that. That most updates you get with Fedora and rolling release, not Fedora, rolling releases and aggressively updating releases, most of those updates are things you will not notice whatsoever. A lot of times you can actually wait upgrading your software 3 or 4 updates before you notice anything different. Sometimes even fucking months before they actually implement a new feature or anything like that.
Fedora is just really awesome. And that's where I leave it. Before this video ends though, I want to make a quick note that I have a ton of new Linux videos planned, where we go finally in a bit deeper into optimization and features. So definitely make sure.
Yeah, go subscribe. Why I'm saying, is that I all those optimization and shit like that for Linux, I've used a lot of fucking alternative kernels and libraries, and they don't really do that much. You see maybe 1 or 2% performance boost, and you will not notice that on an average workload. Let me put it this way: installing the Zen kernel, it's within the margin of errors when you're seeing a lot of the benchmarks. There are some really specific workloads it's amazing at, but then it's negative in other workloads. So again new to Linux, I used to optimize the shit out of Linux. Until I was like, I'm spending hours optimizing this and that, and I'm not getting any return of it. Like, I'm not noticing it being massively more faster. It's not like it's like getting a new CPU, or I'm putting life into a new old system. It's like it's just running a little bit better than when I installed it, but I spent hours doing it. It can be fun. But it's something when you get into Linux and you figure out how much stuff you can do with it, you start to put your hands and fingers in everything. Like getting a new girlfriend, you're exploring that fucking shit all over again. Every fucking night. Back, up, down, left, right. Any way, shape or form you can do it. And then it gets tired a little bit. You get married, there comes kids out, and then you're masturbating to the Victoria's Secret fucking catalog on your toilet. I think he's new to Linux. There's a little bit of a honeymoon phase here. Give him like 5 or 10 years and he will be a jaded motherfucker like I am. But it's always nice to see new people getting into Linux. It's a little bit overexcited, to be honest. There's a little bit of misunderstanding, but that's normal for new users. But yeah, if you like this, I'm actually I'm not logged in. I'm using Opera right now because I don't want you guys to see all my anti-suggestions. But it could be a little interesting to follow his process here. So yeah, see you all later. Bye bye.